Into Europe by the Americans almost came to an end, or at least was suspended following the attacks on the parent plants in Schweinfurt, where they suffered such huge losses. The whole plan of daylight bombing became unsustainable.
Later on, with the more suitable escort fighters and the Allies gaining air superiority over occupied Europe, particularly after D-Day.
Yes, it was a combination of all of those things coming together at that point that did change the whole dynamic of the air war in Europe.
And there were so many American bomber bases across East Anglia during wartime. It's a very expensive operation. Thank you to all of you. And this part with smoke on, simulating two Irish engines, pays due tribute.
Often think about the motorists on the M11 coming up and seeing Sally B land. Must be fantastic.
So there, Andrew Dixon and Paul Schluer touching down in the B-17. We're delighted to announce that yesterday the aircraft flew with a newly fledged captain in the hot seat for the first time, John Corley, and we look forward to seeing him displaying the aircraft for us next season. Over Europe was growing. But still the Luftwaffe threat had not been completely neutralised. Formation left. And about to call the brake, the downward fan brake, and that concludes the display by the 2021 Team Raven. seasoned ex-military aviators and people who took up flight, or rather, it's big to Royal Aircraft Factory SE-5A, scale replicas getting into the air, followed by the replica Junkers CL-1. These are all replica aircraft, in fact. Then we have the Sopwith triplane and the two Fokker DR-1s, the Dreideckers, the German triplanes. That perhaps the German aircraft most emblematic of the First World War, although done some very small numbers, which will come on. The dogfight, which we'll see something of depicted by the whirling melee in the display that's about to come, but a very controlled depiction of the sort of melees of the First World War, which they would fly without oxygen and without parachutes. So imagine that you're standing on a British airfield somewhere in France, close to the lines. A large group of aircraft moving in towards the trenches. There goes the gunfire of the defenders on the ground. And here come those British and German aeroplanes about to split asunder and enter combat against one another. We've got one SE-5A up above with the Junkers CL-1, which already looks like it's off to our left. We've got the two triplanes and the other Fokker triplanes engage the other SE-5A out to our left. Behind it, and there's the other SE-5A followed by the second. Now, we're talking about fighter aircraft of the First World War. That term wasn't really in use by the British. We called them scouts. And in the case of the SE-5A, SE stood for Scout Experimental. It was an aircraft that was flown by 20 more Manic, James McCutton and Billy Bishop. All flew SE-5As. These are 7/8 scale replicas.